So the name of my presentation is, if AI is already here, why does my job feel exactly the same? I've been to, and probably given, honestly, a ton of presentations on AI, and every single one of them go the same way, right? It's this next big wave. It's here. You need to get on board. If you don't get on board, you'll be fried. You'll be toast. I see a lot of confused faces. One, confusion because often these presentations, people use big words or little acronyms, LLM and reinforcement learning, and all this stuff that honestly isn't so relevant. And people just, what are you talking about? The other type of confusion is more profound because I find people take it, they go back to their day job, so to speak. They don't do any of the stuff. Well, some people do, but most people are just kind of too busy, and I get that. But nothing changes. They're not on a sinking ship, right? They're not, now underwater. They're still doing fine. And it kind of feels like things are kind of the same. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Mortgage Tech Talks. This is a quick one. Honestly, it is a quicker one, and mainly because I'm very much so focused on the Canadian National Mortgage Conference. It's coming up, and this episode, because that's what's in my brain right now, is all about that. So I talk about three things, the three big things I am excited about for this conference. One of them is one of the keynote speakers. They always do a great job. I'm excited about that. And then the other two are two concurrent sessions, both close to home for me for different reasons, and basically what you can expect for each of those. So I lay it all out, and at the end I'll give another invitation here, as if I see you at the conference, please come say hello. I'd love to see you. But without further ado, here's the episode. We'll see you on the other side. If you're listening to this podcast, you might already be at the National Mortgage Conference. I'm going there. I'm going to be there. I might already be here by the time. That's the magic of podcasts, right? You can record it at one point and someone could listen to another point and you could be at different locations. But I guess, I don't know why that sounds funny, but I just did in my head there. But in any case, I'm going to give you a couple tips what to look out for if you are listening to this on the Friday. I think I'll release this on Friday. If you're listening on the Friday and Saturday, even the Sunday, what are the things that you should pay attention to, the things that I'm excited about? So the first one, Ben Tal from CIBC, chief economist. If you know him, you know him. He's, well, even not, I don't know him personally, but if you know of him, you know of him. He's excellent. He does a lot of great work. He's very vocal in the community. He publishes a lot of great stuff. And I think he's done this most years. I think most years he's done a keynote talking about the economy, and he's doing it again here. And I'm excited for it. I'm really quite excited. He always gives me some fresh perspective about the economy, things I should be maybe thinking about or doing. I don't know. I mean, listen, I think that we could be in for an interesting thing. I looked into him recently, and he actually just did a podcast with advisor.ca. It was September 29th. So that was like a week and a bit ago. So between September 29th and I think it's October 18th is the conference. Hopefully his opinions don't change too much. So this is going to give us a sneak peek of probably what he's going to talk about. So I'll put the link to this podcast in the description, but I'll give you the overview, right? Basically, a couple things kind of stood out for me. First of all, he really does emphasize how weak the Canadian economy is, right? So it's interesting. He talks about how growth is near zero, business investment is negative, and consumer confidence is weak because of U.S. tariff policy. And then he goes on to say that basically because of this weakness, we're going to get more cuts. And he says specifically in this podcast, and hopefully we'll hear more about it in the presentation, is we look at the Bank of Canada continue to cut rates over the next few months. We expect overnight rate to go down to 2. Now it's at about, I think, 2.5 right now, or maybe 1.75 before they call it a day. So we still have a ways to go. So that's interesting, hearing different things from different people, maybe where, need to stimulate the economy, like Ben saying, other people saying, whoa, what about inflation, right? So yeah, 2 to 1.75, that's another 50, 75 basis points. There's quite a bit there to go. But to the inflation point, he actually does talk about it in this podcast too. But again, hopefully we get more details actually at the conference. But he goes in to say, basically, yeah, inflation is not great. We go to the grocery store and we do see higher prices. But it's important to remember that inflation isn't the price of the banana or whatever. I think that's exactly the example he used. It's not the price of the banana, it's the rate of change in which the price of the banana is going up. So if it's went from $5 to $10 for a banana, and now it's going from $10 to $10.50 or something like that, actually inflation has slowed dramatically, right? Because the rate of change, how quickly the price of the banana is going up, has actually slowed down. Even though it's not coming back down to $5, that's not what the Bank of Canada cares about. They care about that rate of change, and things are slowing. So his basic argument, and again, we'll probably get more of this, I've said that enough times, is that who cares about inflation right now? Our bigger concern is the weak economy. So, okay. And then the last thing he talks about as it relates to housing, and I think probably where he'll go much deeper in the actual talk, given that it'll be a mortgage conference, advisor.ca is more for financial advisors. So, maybe a little bit more finance focused, but he did kind of leave the last part of this interview related to housing. And what he basically said, and again, what does this mean for mortgage brokers? We'll talk about in a sec. But he says, hey, we need to get to a point where we need to stimulate rental demand. So, not just rental supply, because I think that's coming. It's about rental demand. So what does he mean by that? He goes, we need to create a situation in which you are 25 years old, maybe 30 or 35, because the next thing he says, you are married, right? Because I don't think people get married at 25 anymore. So you're 35, let's say, you're married, you have 2 kids, and you are renting, and there's nothing wrong with that. He says, that's the way it is in Manhattan, London, Berlin, and we need to get there. So that's an interesting one. And again, it's going to be one that I'm going to see how he's going to spin it to a mortgage audience, because obviously if people are renting, and this is a future that he sees to a sustainable path to address our, as he puts it, affordability crisis, then what does it mean for brokers? Well, if he predicts it exactly right and he does get it right, it means that, okay, the residential type mortgages that, me or you or whoever gets for their own house isn't going to be as popular as a product in the future. It's going to be more about commercial financing, right? And getting developers in. And so maybe you can be a mom and pop shop doing a fourplex and that's still commercial financing, or it goes all the way to, big developments, big purpose-built rentals, built by the government. I don't know, right? So hopefully it's more that, right, where it's still people who can get mortgages. Maybe it's more commercial mortgages. And maybe that's going to be a shift in the industry. Maybe that's a point that he's going to make, right? And that'll be an interesting insight. Okay, so that's the first one. That's on, I think, Sunday morning, or sorry, Monday morning, the second day. So definitely check that out. I want to make sure I get it right here. I'm just on their website. Yes, Monday morning, 9 a.m. Okay, that's perfect. The next two are 2 concurrent sessions. So these are on Sunday, and they're kind of breakouts, right? So halfway through the day, they say, hey, here are a bunch of different topics we're going to talk about. Kind of choose your own adventure. So the first one I want to talk about is Sunday at 11:30, and this is Doug Adlam. So shout out to Doug. We've had him on the podcast before. Doug has just written a book called, and I want to get this right, The Business of Brokering, How to Build, Scale, and Sell Your Mortgage Business. So he's basically going to give a keynote that talks all about that. I'm excited about this. I read a sneak peek of his book. I was lucky enough to be one of the people selected to read a sneak peek, and it's excellent. I think he did a great job. I mean, the thing about Doug, he's been around so much as it relates to just the mortgage industry, every part of it, technology, sure, building a brokerage, sure, helping a national brokerage. He's seen it all. So he really, really, really understands the pain points of a mortgage broker, I would say. And so I'm hoping we get a little bit deeper than I got from just my little sneak peek of the book in this presentation. I do see here, and I don't know if this is going to, I'll say it. It says, hey, the first 100 guests to arrive for this session will receive a copy of Doug's book, that one I just talked about. Try to be one of those first 100 people, because I think that book, and actually I know that book based on the sneak peek I got, will help a lot. And, obviously this being a tech podcast, I haven't talked a ton about tech so far. One thing he does talk a lot about in his book is just the importance of systems, right? He does talk about the right deal submission platform. He does talk about a CRM. That's kind of actually how I know Doug, is he uses Blue Mortgage. He's one of our early adopters. And yeah, I think it's just a fresh take. I mean, I think a lot of these things, these types of, hey, how to be a successful broker, it is about networking. It's about building trust. It's about doing all these things. And all that's important, but he's one of the first in a while, and I think I'm not dismissing anybody else who talks about these things, but first in a while who, as a core tenet of the business of brokering, talks about technology. So I'm excited about that. Okay, now the third one that I'm talking about, and now maybe this is a bit of a shameless plug, because also Sunday, so right before Doug at 10:30, yours truly, Tom Hall, will be doing a presentation. So I'm excited about it. Always a little bit nervous too. Always nervous. Any presentation I do, I'm always nervous. And then I walk out of there and I feel a bit better. But yeah, I'm going to be doing a presentation. So the name of my presentation is, if AI is already here, why does my job feel exactly the same? So that's the question I ask. And the reason I'm asking it and kind of put it this way is that I've been to, and probably given, honestly, a ton of presentations on AI. And every single one of them go the same way, right? It's this next big wave. It's here. You need to get on board. If you don't get on board, you'll be fried. You'll be toast. The people we know who are using AI has already quadrupled their business. Now is the time. You're on a sinking ship. If you're not using it, get on the life raft, start using AI and start paddling because you need to. You know, again, maybe I've given that presentation before, but I kind of, exhale a little bit there because, a couple of things. I see a lot of confused faces. One, confusion because often these presentations, people use big words or little acronyms, LLM and reinforcement learning and, all this stuff that honestly isn't so relevant. And people just say, what are you talking about? Right. I'm trying to get my deal approved. Why do I care about LLM and what that stands for? So that's one type of confusion. But the other type of confusion is more profound because I find people take it, they go back to their day job, so to speak. They don't do any of the stuff. Well, some people do, but most people are just kind of too busy. And I get that, but nothing changes, right? They're not on a sinking ship, right? They're not, now underwater, they're still doing fine. And it kind of feels like things are kind of the same. Yeah, I use ChatGPT to Google stuff when Google can't give me a good answer. Yeah, sometimes he helps me. Listen to me, I'm talking about ChatGPT like they're a person, but yeah, sometimes ChatGPT helps me write an email. That's helpful, but I haven't doubled my business. I haven't quadrupled my business. I'm not sitting on a beach as AI just does all my files for me. So what's going on here? Right. And that's really, really what I'm trying to answer here is I'm taking a step back and saying, okay, there's a lot of narratives out there. Some of them may be true, some of them not. Let's take a step back and really try to understand what's happening here. And what I do basically is I try to do a bit more fundamental. And this is a sneak peek for the presentation where I say, what has happened in other technological revolutions, right? I talk about the internet, sure, that's the most recent one, but I go even further back in time. I go all the way back to the 1600s and different technological revolutions along the way and say, what happened at each one of those things? And then how do I kind of look at that trend, apply it to AI? So what should we expect about AI? And then how do I take that expectation about AI and apply it specifically to the mortgage industry? So that's really what I try to do. And I come with, I think, a perspective that answers that question. Why is there this mismatch between these crazy presentations that we hear and what we're actually still feeling on the ground? And is it always going to be that way or will things change? And why do some people say they feel the difference, but other people don't? We're going to try and answer all that. So that is Sunday, 10:30 a.m. I hope to see you there. So I'll leave it at that. Those are the three things. This is a shorter episode this week. But as always, guys, I really appreciate you watching. Hopefully this was just a quick dose as you're getting jazzed for the conference. You're doing some air boxing, maybe listen to this, get all fired up. But if I see you at the conference, please do come up and say hello. I'd love to have a conversation. Love to hear what you're liking about the podcast, what you're not liking. And I'm always looking for guests. So if you have a cool tech story, maybe we can even have you on. So we'll see everyone there. Can't wait. And we'll see you next week.